Welcome to the Builders of Authority podcast, a show committed to helping you build authority for your brand. In the realm of business and personal branding, authority stands as a cornerstone. Authority isn't built overnight, it's built over time. So join us as we build something remarkable together. And now, here's your host, Adam McChesney.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Builders of Authority podcast. We're up here at Adventure Unknown doing a live podcast today. Being a member up here at AU has given me the opportunity to meet some incredible people. If you're here in St. Louis and haven't came up to visit this place yet, let's make sure to get you here ASAP. Send me a message. Let's find a time to have you tour the place, see all the amazing stuff that is going on here, and also meet some incredible people and see the space in which we're doing our podcast. Today's guest is someone I met here a few months ago. Over the last few months, we've gotten the opportunity to chat a lot about life and business. A lot of people tell me that I have a lot going on and that I'm always busy. So when I meet someone that I think has a lot going on and is busier than I am, you know that says something. Today's guest is that person. I'm joined by Matt Skarin. I won't do a proper introduction justice because I don't even know everything that he has going on. So I'm going to let him do it. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure to be here. First time
podcast guest.
First time
today.
podcast.
He said
yeah.
He's turned down a lot of podcasts. This is the first one he's accepted. So that's I take that very serious.
Testament to you, buddy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Tell me about yourself, man.
Well, I'm Matt. I've had the opportunity to do some pretty cool stuff. Some out of necessity, some out of want. But right now I just kind of introduce myself as Matt and we go from there.
Yeah. Well, what all the things have you done or do you have in the irons do you have in the fire right now?
Well, I am in the process of exiting a business. One of my businesses, insurance brokerage firm. Very, very proud and honored to be merging with somebody that I trust. And you know, as we kind of look through the through lines of everything that's going on, trust is paramount. So honored to merge that with somebody I trust here. The main time, energy, and effort is spent on partnering with businesses, helping them scale, helping them develop on what's called a path to value, that help them develop personally, professionally, and organizationally. That's a very emerging thing for me, which has been awesome. Partner at a group called Sage Group. And that's just been taken on a life of its own over the last couple of years. It's been a culmination of a lot of forced wisdom, a lot of scars on back to understand that the entrepreneurial journey is not a straight line. And so having the right people around makes all the difference, and helping to set course with the right strategic vision and then create strategic action plans to help them get there is critical. So that's majority of the time. I have some real estate holdings. I do some AI stuff. And again, it all comes down to trusted people. So
How do you manage it all?
Trusted people. I think understanding and finding the zone of genius that we all sit in is powerful. And then finding the right people and partners that can help you in your zone of genius and can have a complementary zone that really is aligned to whatever the mission is, has been the biggest catalyst for change. So I don't need to do it all. We've got good people.
Yeah. Where did a lot of this start? So was insurance brokerage kind of the first thing that you got into as far as the entrepreneurial journey, or take me back to kind of the...
Yeah. So quick and dirty. I was in school. I had a kid, so I came back. So my very first job was door knocking for life insurance in North St. Louis City, and just kind of you got to do what you got to do. I had some fun endeavors through that, but grew through the insurance side. Went back, graduated. I started a farmer's agency. This would have been 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Started a farmer's agency, went back to school, became single dad, and just started working. And so a number of years ago, I think pre-pandemic or right about pandemic time, I had gone to the corporate side on insurance, was set with a opportunity to either go, take a large pay increase or kind of step back off the cliff and back into the entrepreneurial side, and did the math, had great support from my phenomenal wife, and ultimately came to the decision of, if I take this route of higher money over here on this corporate side, the biggest fear I had was not failure. It was that I wish I would have started sooner. And so we decided to go the road less traveled. And that really opened the eyes to so many other opportunities. So, my story up to that point was, I have to work. I have to do this. This is the path. I've got to take care of the family. And you don't really have the option. You're kind of obligated to do whatever it is. So, so stepping off that cliff, was powerful. So I'll side note here, one of the things that I have been fortunate to do is I've been surrounded by some really great people, and pursued wisdom. So I sought wisdom with some incredible people around town, incredible mentors. And so ultimately made the decision to step off the cliff. And as a result, it kind of opened my eyes. So it wasn't just the lane of the insurance side. It became, I got deeply involved in some VC work, some startup work. I got, I started a real estate company and partnered with some really great people on that too. So point being is it's not all me, but there's some wisdom that goes into it. But because I stepped off the cliff, my eyes were opened in a different way.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because I went through a similar journey where I left medical device sales, age 28, right? Had the rest of the career in front of me doing pretty awesome work with an amazing company. And I kind of had that same thing as like, I actually am not worried about money or failure. I'm worried about the basically the regret that I would have if like I have this opportunity now to go do it. What was that process like, arriving to that decision to say, hey, I'm going to go the path less traveled. I'm going to go all in on this thing because I see this. Whereas like 99% of the population would have just been like, yeah, I'm good over here.
I think fear is a pretty powerful word, right? I think as entrepreneurs, as people, we are taught to fear failure, especially for our high performers out there. You fear failure, and I think as an entrepreneur, you learn that failure is actually a critical step in the process. So the bigger fear is not failure, because you're supposed to fail. Yeah. How many times have you failed as an entrepreneur? How many times have we failed as men, husbands, dads, whatever? So failure is actually a gift. The fear that you should have is staying in mediocrity. So I think that was the once that clicked, and by the way, that's a spectrum. That's not, you don't just stay in this abundance mindset. You go back and forth, and it's a spectrum for sure. But I think understanding that mediocrity is so much worse than failure, because failure is a gift.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, right? Like I always feared failure, and I still, like, there's certain things that I do fear about failure based on some of those triggers that I have, or some of those past failures where I was like, man, I really don't want to go through that again. But I think so often people look at it in a very different light. Like I read a post the other day because I heard a mentor say this recently, and he didn't exactly say this, but it was something along the lines of like, in order to win, you have to fail. And in order to win a lot, you got to fail a lot.
Yeah.
And he was like, Adam, like, one of the things that I've seen you do is like, you are willing to fail more than people want to win, which is why you win more than people want to fail.
That's awesome.
And so it made me realize of like, so often I think people look at failure as like, hey, I can win without failure, but you have to actually fail usually a lot more, or have a more significant failure to get like 10 little mini wins. And I think people look at it completely opposite.
Yeah. I've never heard that quote. I really like it. I think the other side is the pace at which you fail. So failing a lot, I'm not saying let's chase failure, but if you untie your ego to the process, can you say, hey, I'm going to go down this road. I'm going to, if it doesn't work, get back on, keep going. And I think that's why there's a bit of diversification in the stuff that I've done in the past, is because it's, hey, if one, there's irons in the fire, because if something happens, it's a bit of a risk management technique. But I would definitely say that one of the things that I'm really, really grateful for with the group that I'm with right now is there's methodology behind it. So it's saying it's a roadmap to how do we go down that road, back it out. If it's a failure road, back it out quickly and keep going.
Yep.
And the other side too is, from the pursuit of wisdom, when I can, I like learning at other people's, what I'd call the failure, I'd call tuition dollars.
Yeah.
So learning at somebody else's expense is always easier. It doesn't take hold the same though when it's not yours. So yeah.
So obviously got started in insurance brokerage or insurance space, things like that. We've talked about some of the other things that you started to do. How did that kind of evolve? And the reason why I asked that is, one, selfishly, as well as like I kind of been in my thing, looking to eventually diversify into other things. Some of the things that you and I have talked about, right? But I think a lot of people are listening to this episode saying like, wow, like I don't know the difference between a shiny object and the difference between, like, as you mentioned, like a methodology for risk management and diversification.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I think there's a interesting, if you look at the evolution of people in the workforce, an older generation was, our parents' generation came in and there was pensions. So you work for a company for, decades, and then they take care of you. Here's your golden watch, you're taken care of, and that's great. And the person who's at the top of that pyramid is typically well compensated. They make an exit at some point. That's good. Then you have another generation that's a step below that says, okay, well, we've kind of got to move around a bit. And we have opportunities. The pensions are not the same. We can kind of make our own wealth, but we've got to be a little bit more strategic. And then we come into our generation, and especially the generations below us, where it's there is a wisdom that we learn from. I don't have to compartmentalize into one option, but I also am coming from this wisdom of niches and stay focused on what you do, stay focused in this business. But I think we also have an opportunity today more than ever to say, well, for those high performing entrepreneurs, there is a need for diversification. AI is going to shake up everything. We've seen a lot of change in business, and we're going to see a lot more coming up. So for those business owners that are trying to understand, how do we diversify, or people that are trying to say, how do I start something? How do I go? The first step is overcome the fear. Part of that is finding the right people to help create that roadmap. Right. And there's a ton of great people out there. But I think what I see right now is one of the biggest opportunities, and the opportunity that I'm most excited for is partnering with people who have a business or maybe a small portfolio of businesses to ultimately create an ecosystem of businesses and do something incredible. So instead of playing two-dimensional chess, you're playing three-dimensional, or two-dimensional checkers, you're playing three-dimensional chess. And how do you create that critical infrastructure and that roadmap to execute?
Well, one of the things you kind of mentioned there as well is like the old way of doing things versus the way in which I think things are evolving quickly right now. And I know talking with a lot of business owners and doing marketing for a lot of business owners and trying to provide them solutions to grow their business, a lot of people don't realize that they're not set up to be able to grow, which is, I know, one of the things you kind of help people with. So talk to me about like what you're seeing right now where people are stuck. They've been in business for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, or maybe even 18 months, and they haven't really moved the needle because they don't have the process and systems. The business revolves around them as the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Let's kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think if the first part of any illness or we'll call it being stuck in a business is you've got to diagnose the problem. Right. So a doctor doesn't perform surgery without doing an X-ray or an ultrasound or a MRI, whatever. So I think understanding and looking critically and objectively where the business is today is the first step, or is a step. And then understanding current state versus target state. And then what needs to happen in order to get there. And then I think what I've had the pleasure of seeing with, throughout the career, but especially with the group, the Sage Group, is somebody else's current target or their target state is sometimes clouded by their own perspective. So I only think, I'm at a $5 million business. I've been here for a while. Maybe I can grow to a $10 million business.
Yep.
And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're happy, that's cool. But now what's the real opportunity? If we truly let go and we truly partner and see, can we help people see the route to something that moves the market, to a 50 million, to 100 million, to a unicorn company? So not everybody's capable of doing that. Not everybody's got that, but typically the ability to bring vision and execution to the table for those people is one of the next steps. So here's the current state, here's the target state, or maybe an ideal target state. And then now from there, how do we reverse engineer what needs to happen in order to get there? And then it's a matter of buying in and listing. Is there going to be a capital? Is there going to be a people? Is there going to be a change in the business? And the answer emphatically is yes, right? Yeah. So now it's having the courage to be able to do that.
What's your take on shifting the conversation a little bit? What's your take on personal branding versus business branding?
Well, you're the brand expert. So I think I've done business enough to know that from a marketing perspective, I want to bring in the right expert. From a personal branding perspective, trust is critical. So do what you say you're going to do. Do it over and over and over again. And that kind of helps the personal branding. So I've been fortunate up to this point that, we've built some trusted relationships that trust enough to do referrals. Just as a quick aside, when I started my insurance brokerage, I think I dumped money into marketing. Yeah. That was probably my biggest spend. And quite honestly, I brought in other people. I was not the guy to lead the charge on my internal marketing side, because I was so busy trying to hook up the pipes. I was like, well, if we're going to fill this bathtub up and the pipes don't work, we're just going to have a leaky, bathtub. Yeah. But so I have found that I'm a little bit better on the operational side. But I know enough to be dangerous on the tub filling side. And that part of that is lead gen, right? Get that right lead gen out there. But lead gen is really, really costly if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, because you're spinning customers, your reputational damage if you're not doing what you say you're going to do. If your operations don't support your strategic action plan, your vision, you're going to spin your wheels more than you're going to create traction. So, so the first thing from a personal branding is do what you say you're going to do. And that's pretty huge. I would also say, while yes, I have some irons in the fire, I don't overpromise. I do my best not to overpromise and underdeliver. So goes back to that one. As far as kind of building a public facing brand, one of the things that's been enlightening, there's I don't know if you've met with John Nicely, but he'd be a great guest. There's a process in marketing of, I have my message, I know my brand, I know what I'm trying to communicate, but it's not about what I'm trying to communicate. It's about what my client needs to hear. So how am I solving my client's problem, and how do we communicate that to them in the way that they need to hear it to create action?
Yeah.
So, so it's been, like I said, I bring people in around that are experts in it. And then, and then that from there, how does that message get distributed? That's the marketing, the SEO, the everything else that's your world. So,
well, and one of the reasons why I asked is because the more that I have built a brand on social media, Adam versus our company, right? And I think you've done a good job of whether it's online, offline, combination of all that stuff, building the trust, is that people are like, hey, I'm going to Matt because he's a trusted resource. I want Matt to be a part of this thing, or something that Matt is doing, I want to bring it in. And I think a lot of people undervalue the importance of what your personal brand can do to unlock more opportunities, right? So people have came to me and been like, hey, Adam, you want equity in my company, or you want to do some type of a rev share deal, or I just, I want to set you up as an affiliate or pay you a referral, right? And so the monetary value or the exponential return on something one day because of what you're doing now, yes, it will impact your business, but more importantly, like if something happens to Builders of Authority or any of your businesses, you're like, hey, I can go build something else, but I also can go out to social media and say, hey, I'm kind of going through this next phase, like any opportunities that are out there, and people are going to be like, yeah, hey, man, I would love to have you do this. So that would kind of be my next question is like, how have you seen people just be like, hey, I've heard about what Matt's doing, or I know what Sage Group is doing. Like, I want them to be a part of it because Matt.
Wow, that's a testament. So I'm actually going to go back to the insurance side. From a dollars and cents, I mentioned my first expense was my biggest expense for year one was marketing. What I found was by doing a really good job and asking for referrals, I actually got more business that way, and it was free, right?
Easy.
And so then it was, well, if I'm referral driven, how do I go be the right person for that? So the KPIs that I switched up early were be the trusted source in what I was doing in my area of expertise at the time, insurance, and then also find an ecosystem of people that are masters in their domain, experts in what they do, and trusted. The key word again. So by creating this ecosystem of trusted people, I became I would just talk to people. I wouldn't sell them insurance. I would just say, what's your problem? Let's chat. And so as asking the right questions, uncovering what those problems were, I didn't have to solve the problem because I had that subject matter expert or that master that could be that problem solver. And so it was an ecosystem of trust, right? And then and so the KPI that I switched to measuring was, instead of trying to measure leads that I generated, I started measuring referrals that I gave. So the KPI that I had for the first 2 years of the business were, I want to send 2 qualified quality referrals. And I knew that as a result, those referrals would come back. And so by years of building up trusted referral networks and trusted referrals, they're still coming into this day. So I haven't spent any money on the marketing side, on the insurance, but that's partly because a lot of my time and energy and effort is kind of on the next chapter, which is coming up. Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, I think what you said there, right, is being like trust is at the foundation. Like, those are the core values inside of our company. The reason why people do business with businesses is because of people built on know, like, and trust. And it has to be on the front end, and it has to be on the back end, and everywhere in between, right? Like, if you lose trust early on, right, yes, you can regain it, but it's a lot harder to do it, especially if you promise something and you didn't deliver on it, right? Where I think a lot of people struggle. But the longevity and the compounded stuff, right? So you're talking about giving out 2 referrals for whatever time period it is, and that's you saying no so that you could then put that person in the right place with the right resource, saying no to money. Probably would have said yes, but it would have been the wrong thing. You would have made it a short-term impact to your business, but the return on investment that compounded for 2 referrals over 2 referrals is what you're still reaping today.
Yeah. So that's on the insurance side. I think the other part of the equation too is you are trusted that you're half the battle, right? And you're really more of your own battle. So you've got to be personally accountable. But I also think there's a massive, don't undermine discernment in the people that you're working with. Think of the clients that you have. There's some clients that you don't take on that maybe you would have taken on in the early stages. There's some people that you've kind of, my team at Sage would call it scars on the back. You get scars on your back that kind of promote wisdom, that now maybe I'm not going to say yes to something that I would have I would have, or maybe I'm not going to say yes to something that I would have in the beginning. So there's a lot of power in no, because the people that you're working with have to get it, they have to want it, they have to be capable of achieving it. So when you have that recipe and there's trust, and you're that person too, now that 1 + 1 has a compounding effect. And that's easier said than done. But it's also, that's why the methodology is so important. There's a big vetting process.
Yeah. So kind of finishing up the episode, one of the things that I've talked with a lot of businesses, we were just on a call with one of our clients this morning, and he's like, hey man, like, there's so much uncertainty going on right now with everything, whether it's political, just the environment, buyers are taking longer to buy. I'm talking mostly like home service businesses and contractors. But it wasn't what was right after the pandemic, all those different things. So I think a lot of business owners are taking a look at like, what does the future hold? I know quite a few people have been like, hey, I'm thinking about just shutting my business down. I have shut my business down. I'm thinking about selling my business. What are you kind of seeing and hearing? And what are some tips that you can kind of lead the audience with of like, hey, if you're thinking about that, here's some things before you go make a rash decision. Here's some things you should consider to actually make the right decision.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've always ascribed to when there's chaos, there's opportunity. So that part of that's a ADHD entrepreneur thing. But so the chaos isn't as scary for certain people. I think number one, you've got to do what's right for your family. That's number one. Number two is if you are set with that uncertainty and lack of clarity, there may be somebody who can help see something that you can't see. And I think that's Ron Warman is managing partner in this. And that was one of the things we talked about yesterday is the gift that we give is not the answer. The gift that we give is the ability to see. That's the best gift that's one of the best gifts we can help people, is because you're not going to do everything for them. You have to help them see. And then that entrepreneur has to help their team see the opportunity. So if all else, I would say being able to see where the opportunity is. So take, for example, a company that says, hey, I'm dealing with a different generation in a workforce, or, hey, we've got some political turmoil and tariffs are highly impactful, or AI is just shaking everything up. I think the answer is letting go of what your vision was, not letting go of it, but holding an open palm and allowing that to morph and change is really is a pretty healthy spot to be. It doesn't mean that, you may not end up at that conclusion, but if you can see that line of sight on what the opportunity is, there are a lot of people that can't. So to me, there's a massive opportunity in the marketplace right now of, if you can tweak the vision and see it and then create the roadmap, you can do things that were never possible before. And on the other side, it's, it may not be for everybody. Once you have that roadmap, there's an enlistment process. You have to make the choice, because it's not, if you're a business owner that's worked on it for, 10 years and you're finally like, well, it's kind of my time to sit back and relax. Well, you're going to have to enlist, because it's not the time when you're in that change. It's not the time to sit back and relax. So sometimes easier said than done, but I think perspective and the ability to see is one of the gifts that we help bring.
Yeah. Love it, man. Well, this is awesome. Hopefully that was a good podcast host for your first episode.
Yeah, way easier. You made it super easy.
Love it, man. Well, tell people where they can stay connected with you online, learn more about what you're doing, and all that good stuff.
LinkedIn, I think by the time this airs, it'll be a little bit more public. LinkedIn is a good spot. Email is, you'll throw the email in the draft, and I'm up at AU. So yeah.
Love it. Yeah. Well, you heard him. Just come up to AU, send me a message. Would love to have you guys up here if you're in St. Louis. It's a great place. Meet some amazing people just like Matt. Great episode. Appreciate you, Matt. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review if you're listening on any of the podcast platforms. Definitely helps us push the needle. If you're watching this video on YouTube as well, make sure to subscribe, like the video, leave a comment with a nugget, an insight, etc., that you took away from this episode. And remember, authority isn't built overnight, it's built over time. See you next week.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We sure do appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. This way you'll get notifications as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. We sure do appreciate it. Until next time, friends.